My name is Peggy Robinson. I was raised in Southeast Ohio, and when I was 5 years old, we had moved out to the country outside of Marietta, and I was sitting alone in my room on the floor playing with my Barbie dolls, and my mom come in and said, "It's hot outside, let's go swimming." And so I hurried, got my little bikini on, and my brother, he's 2 years older than me, he was in his trunks in no time. And so we got to the pond down below our hill, and John, my brother, he went clear to the farthest end of the pond, and he dove in and started doing laps. My mom had said that her and my sister would be down after a bit. So as I'm wading in, I saw a board floating, and I thought, I bet I could use that as a raft. So I laid my belly on it, and I went swimming straight out to the middle. And I said, "Hey, John, look at me." And he swam real fast out to me. And as he's almost to me, I thought, oh no, he always takes my toys. He's going to take my board. And that's just what he did. He grabbed that board, he put his own belly on it, and was doing his laps on the board. So now I'm in the middle of the pond, and I can't swim. So I look for my middle sister, Terry, my mom, to look out for me, and they're not there. Like, nobody knows I'm in trouble. I'm trying real hard to keep my head above water, and I'm thinking I made a big mistake coming out here. I should know how to swim. I should know how to tread water. I can't do anything. And it wasn't long at all that my little face was no longer above the water, but under the water. And I'm dropping down deeper. It's muddy brown, and I just wanted to get above and get some oxygen. I'm scared. I'm screaming. Then all of a sudden, I'm at the ceiling of the kitchen, and I'm looking down, and I see my mom and my sister. They're slowly getting things out of the cabinet to bring down, like for a picnic, and I feel their emotions. I don't hear anything like earthly, worldly. I'm just sensing, feeling their mood and their emotions. And then I'm back in the water, and I'm continually struggling. So I think my soul must have left my body for a moment and come back. But now my throat hurts so bad, it feels like it's going to burst wide open, and I can't take it anymore. But then it's like that calm feeling you have when you wake up from a nap, that relaxed feeling like everything's fine with the world. And I thought at 5 years old, thinking, my parents lied to me. There's no such thing as drowning. What was I afraid of? Because I'm not struggling to breathe. I can breathe. I'm fine. And the water's no longer that dark, scary, muddy brown where I couldn't see. It's now a bright white, transparent green. So I think, oh, okay, this is cool. I can't wait to tell my older siblings there's no such thing as drowning. Then I'm sinking down below, which before would have terrified me. And the fish are bumping into me. And I'm just going off like driftwood. And I'm thinking, why aren't they afraid of me? When we go fishing with Dad, we try to catch the fish with our bare hands, and they'd always get away from us, but they're not afraid of me. And this aha moment comes. Like, oh, these fish bumping into me, they know something I don't. I'm dead. And I had a vision of the future. I could see my family in our white station wagon, my parents, the 4 kids, going in and out of there, and they would always say, "That's where Peg is." I thought I would always be at the bottom of this pond, like they would never find me. So I raised up to the top edge of the pond, and I thought, well, there's something different about my vision now. I can see below the water and above the water at the same time. Like if you were looking over at a fish tank, you could see above and below. It was like I was an outsider looking at both. I thought, this is strange. And I thought, well, I'm bored with below. I think I want to go above. So I went above slowly. I got high as the treetops, and I thought, that's fine for now. And I could see Route 7, the highway, over top it. I could see clear to the Ohio River, right past the Route 7. And if I turned to my right, I could see the train tracks, went all the way down past our house above the hill. It was cool as a 5-year-old being able to see from that vantage. And I looked down to where I walked to the pond, and I thought I could only see as far as my height before. And now I can see everywhere. And I thought, well, since I can hover, I suppose I could fly. And then I heard a female voice, but I didn't see anyone. I heard it a certain distance, like I could tell where she was. It's like a young woman's voice. And she says, "No, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back." And I thought, go back. That's not how death works. I know that much at 5 years old. And I don't think I have to listen to anybody anymore. I want to go find other kids to play with. So I went back towards the pond, and I saw 2 boys walking. One was about my age and one was a few years older, and they're carrying fishing poles and a bucket. And I'm walking along saying, where are you going? What are you doing? What are you doing? And they're ignoring me. And then the one my age, it's like we're telepathic talking. He's like, well, we're hurrying home, and we're late getting home, and we're in a hurry. And I'm like, well, they're just ignoring me like my siblings. So I went flying over the highway. I saw the billboard on the right as you dip down West Side Marietta towards my grandma's house. There was a bunch of kids playing in a yard, and I was running around playing kickball with them. I thought, well, they don't see me. This is boring. And I went on down in and out of houses on the left towards my grandma's house. But at the same time, I thought I never left Heaven Over the Center of the Pond. I don't know how you could be in 2 places at once. And at some point, I now see my mom and my sister are now there. They have arrived. I didn't see them walking down or sitting down. I saw they're already sitting there on a bed sheet, and they're rubbing lotions on their arms, and they're talking, and I could feel their conversation. I still didn't hear anything of this world, but I felt their conversation. And I felt jealous of my sister because I thought, I'm dead. I'll never be old enough to have a conversation with my mom like that. And I looked over at my brother, and he's on my board, and I felt anger because he caused me to die. And nobody's looking for me. And at some point, I had a knowing my family didn't love me. And then a voice, clear inside of my head, but it wasn't me. Someone said, children are sent here to be loved. That is why God sends them here. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not fair. You show me my family don't love me. Now you tell me that's why God sends them here, but I'm not loved? And this strong feeling of injustice grew in me. Well, the next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I realize I'm being carried over my brother John's right shoulder. And against his bare back, I'm throwing up this pond water down his back. And he goes, Mom, can I put her down now? As I'm dangling over his right shoulder, I can see my mom and Sister Terry are walking up ahead to his right. And when John says that, they both turn at the same time and look. And Mom takes a big sigh of relief, nods her head yes, that he can put me down. But they turn right around and they keep walking up the hill. And I'm feeling their emotions still. This secrecy, kind of like instead of mother and daughter, like they're friends in trouble. Like my mom's going to be in trouble for this happening to me. And they continue and just walk right on up the hill. My brother puts me down and he runs real fast. In a second, he's disappeared. He's went up the steps and up the hill to our house. So now I'm staying alone on this road before the train tracks. With this knowledge, my family don't love me, and this just confirmed it. With a belly full of pond water, I'm sick and I'm weak. And then silence was my answer, that I was on my own now. And I felt very abandoned. And I thought, why am I here? Why would I go up to that hill to the house? I thought, I'm going to go back to the pond. I know it really hurts, it is scary, but I'm not going to fight it this time. So I took a few steps going back to the pond. I was going to go drown so I could go back flying, doing what I was doing. But then the angel voice I heard earlier, she now appears hovering over the road, and she looks like a thin, transparent white young woman in a flowing gown with long sleeves. She says, no, don't. I said, why? You know they don't love me. And she says, well, you'll have a lot of love someday. And I said, where will I find it? And she pointed right towards Belpre, and then she was gone. And so I went on up to the house. I got in my nightgown, I crawled in bed, and I thought, I'm going to have to take care of myself now. I can't depend on anyone to take care of me like I did before, my mom and my sister. I'm going to have to be my own mother. And I picked up a nursery rhyme book, and I flipped through, and I stopped the old woman that lived in a shoe. And I looked at the picture of all these beds lined up, and I had this knowing that I was going to have a lot of kids someday. Because when the angel said you'll have a lot of love someday, I think she meant that I would have a lot of orphans. That I would love unloved kids like me. And so strange things started happening after that. Of course, I didn't talk to anybody. I had no words for it. I knew nobody would believe me. But maybe about a week later, it seems like, we went to Vito Lake. It's not far from our house. We went there frequently. Dad took us all fishing, 5 kids and Mom. And we got out of the car and all the kids got their fishing poles and started fishing. And I felt led. I felt like something was like, come over here. And so I started headed towards the woods. And I thought, why am I here? I don't want to be here. And something saying, you need to be here. And so I looked around and I saw a flower. And I sat down and looked at that flower. And mind you, I'm 5 years old. And I was like, how did you grow here? You grew from out from under a rock. How did you do this? And it was just moving in the wind. And my 5-year-old mind is like dancing in the wind, like it was rejoicing. It made it out of this horrible environment. And then I got a vision of the girls in my Sunday school class that had the long hair and the bows and ribbons and nice dresses and fancy socks and shoes. And then I saw myself, this chopped up, short pixie haircut, wearing my older sister's hand-me-downs. I saw myself as so plain and poor in comparison. And a voice said to me that I have something those girls will never have. I have the will of a wildflower. Just like this flower, it grew in this harsh environment, that I would also be grown in a harsh environment, that I'd have a very hard road ahead of me. But because of it, I would have that strong will to survive. So I just took off. I was so happy. I felt like somebody just told me my fortune. And then as I started to go, it said, oh, and one more thing. You're also going to be beautiful. Well, to tell a little 5-year-old girl that loves Barbie dolls, something like that. And I was just like skipping on my way. And I picked up all these wildflowers. And then it was time to go. And I went to climb in the car. And all the way home, I'm squished with the other 4 kids in the back seat. And I'm thinking, I have a secret that nobody knows, that I'm going to be strong like a wildflower and I'm going to be beautiful someday. And I'm just sitting here grinning and glowing. Like, I just know everything's going to work out fine. And so then another strange thing happened. I was laying down for a nap one day in my bedroom. The other kids were in school. And I woke up from my nap and there's 3 people standing alongside my bed. And they're dressed like from 100 years ago. And there's one man in the middle, it looks like the father. And on each side, it looks like a mother and maybe his daughter, like a teenage daughter. And the women, their hair's pulled back tight. They've got long dresses, like they're poor, but long aprons. And they're looking down at me. And I'm laying there in a bed, and I'm thinking, who are these people? Why are they, look like they're mourning my death. Like if you were in a casket, somebody looking down at you. That's the way they were standing there in a row. Like, what is going on? So I closed my eyes. I am not opening my eyes until they're gone. Just go away, go away. I don't want to see you. And I kept opening, and finally they were gone. So I got out of bed and I said, Mom, who was those people in my room? There's nobody here. So like, what in the world? None of this made sense. These memories just kept popping up through my life, and I just put them away. So, life went back to normal. I mean, we was a poor family. My stepdad was abusive. The abuse went from oldest to youngest. My mentally disabled sister, she moved out to avoid it. Steve moved out to avoid it. And then Terry. I had the longest because I was the youngest. And during 5th or 6th grade, we had a health teacher, Mr. Cooper. One day, he started talking about failure to thrive. He was explaining how babies in orphanages can die from nobody loving them. They're perfectly fine. They have nurses. Their health is fine. But they can will themselves to die if they're not loved. Same with old people, he said. In nursing homes, their kids stop coming to see them, and they can will themselves to die. And I was hooked on every word he was saying. I knew that I had to do something. Like, we cannot live in a world where babies and old people are dying. Like, really? People can't love these people. So I thought, I gotta do something. I thought, well, I'm just a kid. There's nothing I can do. But right after the abuse and stuff was going on at home still, we were getting ready to move again, and I went to Warren High School. And I was out in the smoking area. I was just trying to be this bad kid. Everybody thinks I'm this worthless bad person now. They think I'm trash and I'm supposed to be treated like this. And a voice said to me out in the smoking area, do something good for your body instead of hurting it for a change. Go in and get a hot meal. So I walked through the door to the cafeteria, and as I do, I see this boy that's in my class. His name's Jimmy. And everybody's coming up, these different guys, shaking his hand, patting him on the back, they're talking. And a voice said, you aren't to approach, you're to observe. This is what goodness looks like. And then this voice said that I am to go and become a better person first. And someday me and Jimmy would be together. So I started praying. I started trying to be this good kid again. There I am in 17. It's the summer before my senior year. And I'm thinking, I'm going to turn 18 in February. I'm going to have no help at all. What am I going to do? And I would walk around the woods and I would pray to God. And one day I found a hill. So I walked up, and seeing far away above like that, like I was hovering over the pond, like you could see treetops and way out. I think it touched something in my soul, because as I'm praying to God, I'm saying, God, you're too far away and I need help. And I know I'm not going to have any help when I turn 18. What am I going to do? But all of a sudden I got a voice come in, like this warm breeze. I knew God was there. I felt his presence. And I got these steps. Something told me, you got to get your driver's license so you can get a car. You got to get a job so you can buy the car. This is what you got to do. You got to be ready for 18. So that's what I did. I got a job and I bought a car for $300, and it became my home when they kicked me out. My mom kicked me out. But when I turned 18 months prior, I made a promise to God and myself that someday, somehow, I was going to help abused kids. I would not forget all these things that happened. Like a lot of people, they get older. Oh yeah, I was abused, but I deserved everything I got. I was like, do not do that. And I was shown a vision of like black and white negatives, like the roll of these kids' faces. It was so clear, just run across the room. And God said, there will always be child abuse. I was like, I promise I will do something someday to help abused kids. And so I got married. I had 2 little boys, and this guy was, his name's Jeff. He's from a big Catholic family, 12 kids. And Jeff said I had to get my tubes tied. I'm like, I'm 20 years old. And if I didn't, he was going to divorce me and take the kids. And I always wanted a lot of children. And I begged him the whole 9 months, please don't make me do this. But he made me, because he would take my kids. And then we go to the second NDE. I'm 25 years old. We had just bought property. We're getting ready to build a new home. I'm standing out on the hill, and I thought, wow. I remember the hill when I was 17, just 7 years went by. And here I am on my own hill, and I'm so happy. I prayed to God for those steps. And now here I am, getting ready to build a new home. We bought this property. I got 2 beautiful little boys, getting ready to adopt my nephew. I'm pregnant for twins. I went and got the tubal ligation reversed, even though my ex forbid me, and he finally says, you won't shut up until I say yes. So I got it done. And so I'm so happy. Like I'd never been this happy for my life. And all of a sudden, I heard my oldest son, Matthew, who was like 6 at the time, yell, Mom, Jeremy! That blood-curdling scream that no parent ever wants to hear. Jeff took off running to the woods, the sound of the boys. And I start praying, dear God, please don't take my baby Jeremy. I can't live without my Jeremy. I'm frozen in fear. I can't move. But all of a sudden, I'm hovering over the field. And a knowing comes that the creek is high. And I'm thinking, the creek can't be high. I bought this property months ago. It's always like ankle deep. It says the creek is high because we had a lot of melting snow and rain. Jeremy fell in. But it's not that swift. It's not that deep. If he would stand up, he'd be okay. And all of a sudden, instinctively, I started praying, Jeremy, stand up. It's not that deep. Walk out of there. And so I slowly walked down towards the creek. But I stayed back because I thought, I'm going to see my dead son's body. And I'm going to have to go to a mental hospital the rest of my life. I can't do this. And then I see Jeremy's little head walk up out of the creek. He stands right in front of me. And I'm like, am I seeing his ghost? And he says, Mom, was you worried about me? And I fell to my knees. My God, Jeremy, you're my baby. So Jeremy was 5 years old then. When he was 20 years old, he heard me tell that story for the first time. I was talking to his friends and his cousins. He was having a New Year's Eve party. And he walks out of the kitchen. He said, Mom, I heard you praying. I'm like, what? You could have heard a pin drop in the room. Everybody's mouth flew open. He said, that's what it was. I fell in. I was trying to swim. I heard you say, Jeremy, calm down, stand up. It's not that deep. Walk out of there. So that's what I did. And he recently told me, he said, Mom, I was hovering over you when you were praying like a drone. I saw you. I'm like, oh my God. So all these experiences, all these things, they were real? How could they be real? They sound so impossible. So that was Easter Sunday back in 1986 when Jeremy almost drowned. The next day, I started having pain. And the pain's so bad I can hardly walk. So I called my doctor. He says, Peggy, it's not ectopic pregnancy. I did ultrasound in the office. Both babies are in the uterus. By Friday, I was in so much pain, I couldn't get out of bed. So I told my husband, take me to the hospital. Something's wrong. And so we got to the hospital, and I say, I'm either going to throw up or pass out, but I think it's a tubal pregnancy. And they had my husband stay and fill out the papers. She put me in a wheelchair, handed me a blue bowl, put in my lap. Just started to push me down this long hallway to find a room. And I got my hands on the wheelchair armrest. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be sick. I need to get that bowl. I lost contact with my body. I couldn't move a finger. I couldn't lift anything. And then my head hit my chest. Suddenly, I am shot like a rocket through space. I'm in this tight, like a rope or a tunnel, and I'm shot straight up. And it's like a roller coaster. It's like bumpy and it's loud. And kind of see-through walls, because I could kind of see like space was out there, like a whizzing. And I thought, I got to run away. I got to get back to my kids. And I realized that wasn't possible. And I said, I'm so sorry, my children. I don't want to leave you. I realized at 25 years old, I'm dead. Because I'm not in the wheelchair, I'm not in the hospital, I'm taken somewhere else. And this is not what they taught in church. I was always taught that everybody stays in the grave after you die until the end of the world, and then everybody goes up at once. But I'm not, I'm going right now. And I see a light at the top. I look down, I don't see me, but I feel just like me. I'm in this bright white light. And if it had been a room, it would have been the floor, wall, ceiling is all white, but also in the middle is white. Like we don't have that here. I was contained in light. And I feel just like me. I don't see me. And I thought, oh, I'm dead. Well, I didn't make much impact. I didn't tell people my story. I didn't tell them about the abuse very much. Nobody wanted to hear it. They said, you and your family just need to get along, or all these things. Nobody wanted to hear that stuff. Or they judged me for it. And I didn't make an impact. At 25, what did I do with my life? I didn't speak up. And then I look around and I'm thinking, why am I alone? Did I do something I don't remember? Am I going to be alone for eternity? And I see an outline of people standing there. And then I see there's an outline of people sitting right in front of that row. It's like a jury almost, like they're standing and then there's some sitting. And all I see is a faint outline. And I was like, who's there? So my eyes dropped down and focused on one sitting up front and center. I said, that has to be God. And I thought I had a complaint department. I started screaming out every abuse, but it was just like real fast, like time sped up. My brother did this, my dad did this, my step did this, my mom did this. You know, I cannot leave my kids down on earth, like feeding to the wolves. They cannot be down there without a mother's love and protection, like I was. I can't do that. And then a scene opened up on my left, just like somebody started playing a TV. It was a scene as if you just walked into a store and there's a little boy throwing a fit, screaming, demanding he wanted something right now, right in front of the cash register. And there's a mom standing there. She's like, no, you can't have that. And she just stayed calm. And I believe that was God's way of showing me, this is how you're acting. You're acting like a spoiled child. The answer is no. It is your time. Well, I got to humble myself before God and stop acting like a brat. And I said, I know from being Catholic you're omniscient. You can see into the future. If you can show me my kids will be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. If not, I beg to return. And then, as I am hovering in this white light, and this panel is over on my far right. And so I see on the side a man from behind, brown hair and a long gown. And I know instinctively that has to be Jesus. It was no longer outlined like over here. This was a person. And they didn't turn the head. I didn't see any face. It was just from behind. And suddenly it's just like I just moved right beside him. And we dropped down immediately to earth. And we're above the trailer. It's at nighttime. There's my 3 boys in the bedroom. And they're discussing the fact that Mom has died. So this is in the future. I'm getting to see how my boys would be. Like when I asked God that, I didn't think he'd actually show me, but he did. So my middle son, Jeremy, he's very sensitive, told his older brother, Matthew, I don't care that you say mom is dead. I want her back, and I want her back right now. And I felt his pain in my heart so bad I retracted. And now I'm back in the white light. Instead of just being in the center of the white light now, I'm right in front of that panel. I'm right in front of God, which is still just the outline. And I am crumbled. And I'm sobbing. And I realize it's not God's fault that I died. It's mine. I'm the one that got my tubes tied. I'm the one that got them reversed. I took that chance and I lost. And now my twins are going to die. And my sons are going to be motherless because of me. And the horrible regret, thinking that my kids might have a life like I did growing up, was excruciating. And so the only way I calmed myself was, okay, I'll stay. Like, I have to stay. I accept it. This is my fault, not yours. They said it was my time. And I'll just wait right here until my sons are old when they die, and I'll get to see them again. And then this fear blew up in me like fire. And I thought, what if my sons hate God because their mom was taken at a young age, because I've heard of that. And they hate God and they blame God, just like I was just blaming God. And I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I'm back in that wheelchair. First, I realized, and I now have feeling of my hands on the armrest. And then my hearing comes. I hear the nurses behind me talking to another woman. And we're not moving. We're parked for some reason. They're talking. And I remember exactly what I thought. She's so busy socializing, she doesn't know her patient just died. And then I felt a warmth through my body, and something said, once you feel your feet, you're all the way back. And I waited for a second, and I felt my feet. And then they pushed me to a room, put me on a high table with a big light above. My husband met me in there. My doctor come in, who happened to be on call, and he assumed it was a miscarriage. So he prepped me for a D&C. And then he sat me up. He says, Peggy, your uterus is still intact. Why do you keep saying it's a tubal pregnancy? I could not tell him because I was just in heaven and accepting it. I didn't imagine that. That was real. I was dead. God just let me come back. I was thinking all this, but I knew I couldn't tell my doctor because this was 1986. They would put me in a psych ward. And so my doctor looked at my husband like, what's wrong with her? My husband shrugged his shoulders like, I don't know. The doctor says, well, since you live an hour away, if you make you feel better, you can spend the night. He said, nothing's wrong with you. So they both went home, went to bed. By morning, the orderly come in. It says, get in the wheelchair. I'm taking ultrasound. I thought, oh, good. And as they took me down the elevator, my sister Terry showed up. And she said, oh, Peg, I want to go to the ultrasound, see the twins. I said, they're dead. So they took me down to ultrasound in the basement, and the technician started doing the ultrasound on my right. My sister's on my left. Oh, Peg, look, I see the twins. And I thought, I'm not going to look. I'm not going to get attached because these children are dead. I'm about dead here. I knew it because of the NDE. And for a split second, I seen the excitement on my sister's face, and I thought, oh, what I would give if the twins was okay. What I would give if that was a hallucination about the whole heaven thing. If I suddenly went crazy for whatever reason in the hallway and I hallucinated that, wow, then I would be crazy. But at least my twins would be okay. And I started turning my head for a second. And as I'm to look at the ultrasound to see the twins, I had this knowing that was no hallucination. You are about dead here. And I looked, and just as I tried to look at the ultrasound, the tech pulled the ultrasound screen away where I couldn't see it. Her eyes bulged. She went to the post on the wall and got the phone and said, Dr. White, stat. And she ran out of the room. I thought, well, I'm a goner. He come in. He did the ultrasound. He said, Peggy, it's the worst thing imaginable. You have internal bleeding filling your entire abdominal cavity clear up to your chest. We got to get you in surgery now. Since you're an organ donor, I'm going to send you upstairs, sign the papers, then I'll meet you back downstairs for surgery. I found out later that they called my whole family and said I wasn't going to make it. And my mom was out there talking about she'd be left up to her to make funeral arrangements. So I went down to surgery. Then I woke up in my room, and my doctor's there holding my hand. He said, Peggy, I'm so sorry. And I started crying. He said, I know you really wanted these babies. And so I come home from the hospital with this huge depression. I could not tell anybody what I just experienced, that I was dead. And then we went to a family reunion, big family reunion, and we're standing in a pavilion. Everybody's looking at all this food on the tables as we're in line. And I said, "Do you hear a child crying?" Everybody's like, "No." So I continued going up the line. I walked out into the field to the sound of this child crying, and I looked around. I was like, "There's no child out here. I don't hear it now. What's going on with me?" And then I heard a voice say, "Go over to that tall grass. Look over there." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's nothing in that tall grass. I walked over the tall grass, and here was a deep ditch somebody had dug coming down off the hill, and the water was running through there. And here's this little toddler, this little boy, face down in the ditch drowning, and his body was barely twitching. So I reached down back of his shirt, and I stand him up on his feet. And he looks at me like he's seen a ghost, like he's all this water. I thought, well, it must be the water in his eyes, because it's just flooding out of his face. And then he runs over to the end of the pavilion, and the boy is pointing at me to his parents, and they're like, "What?" Like they didn't see me. I thought, I'm standing right here. So that was still in 1986. In 2010, I was a counselor, and this great big guy was one of my clients one day. He come in. I'm like, "I recognize that last name. Did you used to go to those family reunions?" He's like, "Yeah." So I'm going to tell you a story I never told before. It's just this little boy. I heard his kid crying. Nobody else did. And I picked him. And he leaned way back in his chair. Great big guy. He said, "That was you? That was my little brother. He swears to this day an angel saved him." He said, "I can't wait to tell Mom we now know who it was that saved him." So there was these confirmations like that. Something's going on here. Just like with Jeremy saying he heard me praying. So what's going on? Because I'm a very rational person. I'm an honest person. I don't make up stories. And this all sounds completely ridiculous. But they're my memories that don't leave. So back in 1986, after that boy in the ditch, my husband's driving. I'm in the front passenger, 3 little boys in the back. We're coming through Gallipolis, Ohio, into Cheshire, Ohio, headed home. And this never happened before or since. All of a sudden, I told my husband, "Pull over right now." I jumped out of the car, and I thought, I don't know who lives here, but something is saying, "Go to the house right now." It's so strong, I can't fight it. And so I knock on the door, and I think when somebody comes, I'll say, "I'm sorry, I have the wrong number," and leave, or the wrong house, and leave, because this is taking over me. I knock on the door. Here's John's ex-wife. She's, "Oh, this is my sister's house. She rents, or she's on babysitting my nephew." I said, "Take me to him right now." And I run through the house to his bedroom. He's in there choking on Easter basket grass. And I grab him up under my arm. I run to the bathroom, pour the water, and I just have the water running in the tub. And I get my hands wet, and I just start pulling the grass out. And she says, to this day, I saved his life, because she's kind of learning disabled. She says she didn't know what she would have done. She was looking through the phone book while I was doing that to find her sister, say she can't handle him. And so I got in the car, and I told my husband what happened. And we're quiet on the way home, and he keeps looking at me. And I'm like, I don't know, like, what's happening to me? So then we were at, not long after that, a family reunion at his parents' house. And everybody's drinking. And nobody could say, "I'm sorry you lost the twins. I'm sorry you had this miscarriage." Nobody could be any nicer to me. And so I just had to get away from everybody. I walked outside, and I sat in the wet grass because it was night out and dew. And I looked up the night sky at the stars. All of a sudden, I remembered the drowning at 5 years old from front to back. Like somebody just put on this big movie trailer in the sky. And it took me over. It was over. I like jerked up. I'm like, oh my God, did I drown when I was little? So the next day I went to my mom's house. Like, "Mom," I had 2 questions. "Did I drown when I was little, and how did you find me?" And so the long story short on that, my mom remembered the drowning. She says, "When I looked around and seen you weren't there, I asked John where you was." She says, "Go find her." So he eventually found me, and that's when he was carrying my body back up to the house. My sister remembers it. My brother remembers it, said, "You got me in a lot of trouble that day." That's about it. So it happened. And I could tell them where they were sitting on the bed sheet, what they were doing. It made no sense. Back then, never heard of NDE, any of that. Just like, this is too weird. And so those just things went for a while. And then I started remembering the promise I made myself at 18. That somehow I was going to help abused kids. I started taking life real seriously. I was changed. I felt wiser and like I had responsibility. And so I quit work and started college to become a children's services worker. And I just had a knack for it. And one day we got a call, and there's a guidance counselor at the junior high. And he said, Peggy, could you come check on this kid? There's no abuse or anything like that. It's just, I'm concerned. He was off school for a while and he's back now. His doctor note says he has ear infection. He says, but something's just off the way he walks and something's going on. Could you come help me out? So I went down to junior high and I looked at this boy and I called his doctor and I said, there's something going on. Like he's walking strange. He's acting strange. And the doctor laughed at me on the phone. Like, he's fine. But I called the parents and I says, this isn't a child abuse report or anything like that. You don't have to do anything I say. I'm just concerned because this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. And they said, say no more. We felt the same thing. The doctor told us he was fine. We're going to go pick him up, take the hospital right now. Within an hour later, they called me and they said he has a brain aneurysm. If we hadn't got him in here when we did, he'd be dead right now. So he's got a long road ahead of him with surgery and physical therapy. And we just can't thank you enough. And so I was so busy with these cases and they consumed my life. And I started realizing my husband's drinking was going to affect my kids as when they got older. They might end up being like him and his brothers. So I got divorced after 16 years of marriage. He'd become abusive. And the day he asked for the divorce and he left, took the boys for the first visit, I went in the bathroom and I cried. And I'm just start bawling. You know, my parents never loved me. My siblings hate me. My coworkers hated me. You know, now my husband's 16 years, don't love me, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I heard, in front of the mirror, I heard God's voice. He said, my child. And my face was red hot from bawling. Now these cold tears are coming down my face. And I got up and I start rejoicing and I'm dancing. Like, that's right. God's the only family I need. And I saw a leaf in my imagination and I heard it say, follow God like a leaf follows the wind. Your only job is to trust. So I went out that night and I said, God, I'm following you. I'm trusting you. I'm going where led. And led me to this place. And I thought, oh, this is crazy. I'm not going in there. What is wrong with me? And I heard a voice say, don't look left, don't look right, look straight ahead. And I walked in and there was Jim, the Jimmy that I was told in high school that we would be together someday. It was 20 years later. I was 16 when I heard that. And here I am, 36. And there he is. And we ended up getting married and we adopted a sibling group of 5. And then we adopted another sibling group of 4. And he's my soulmate. And he experienced with me a few years ago. We were coming through Tupper's Plains and there was a sign that said, road closed, accident. And he got out of the car to go see if we could go on down the road and turn and go to our house. And as soon as he stepped out, I couldn't wait for him to come back because I suddenly knew it was a motorcycle accident, but they think it's only a man, but there was a woman on the back and they don't know it. And so he come back and I was like, it was a motorcycle accident, wasn't it? He's like, yeah. I said, well, they think it's just a man, but it wasn't. There was a woman on the back too. And she was thrown off and they don't know it. They're not looking for her. I got to go down there. And he's like, we're not allowed down there. And I kept bugging him all night. I got to go down there. I'm telling you, there's a woman down there. Well, the next morning they found out that this guy called and he said, I think my mom was with the guy that was killed on the motorcycle. Could somebody look for her? And they went and looked for her. She was up in the weeds. And I felt horrible because when you're led and you get told these things and you go, but then when you don't, you talk yourself out of it. It's horrible. Like I have such guilt that I just didn't not care what anybody said. And I just went down there and looked for the woman because I knew where she was. I knew what happened. And then I sit in the camper alone and the PTSD from my childhood, from children's services, everything was like this record player. I couldn't stop. It kept replaying all these horrible memories. So one day I wrote them all in the notebook and I stuck it in a drawer and like it was a monster I trapped. I said, now stay in there, stay out of my mind. The next morning he got up and he went to work and I thought, I feel just as bad. And I felt like I was waving this white flag like, you won. What was the purpose of my life? Why did I always try to be good? Why did I always try to help people? Why did I try to rescue children? Why did I do anything? I felt like every fight I had, I lost. And God, I give up. I'm not trying anymore. I'm just going to live the rest of my life and not help anybody. And I'm done because there's no such thing as justice. I just can't win. Good guy don't win, right? And I was just like, gave up. But all of a sudden I saw a vision. I was hovering over our creek. I see me down below and I'm picking up these bits of light in the creek and I'm watching and a voice says to me that I had been shoving all the bad experiences in my life and the good spiritual experiences under the rug just the same. That I had to tell my story. To make people appreciate the good, I had to tell the bad. And buddy, I didn't want to tell the bad. It was gut-wrenching. It was ugly. It was horrible. I didn't want to speak the words like, who wants to hear this crap? But all of a sudden, I knew I had to. I had to show the bad in order for people to appreciate the good, to show them what God does in our lives. Because if he does this in my life, if I can save my child from drowning through prayer, if I can hear these things and respond and go where led, then I feel like there's a whole science out here. Whether near-death experience, after-death communication, spiritual experience, out of body, during trauma. And I had to admit that these things were real, that I was not crazy. I do not hallucinate. I'm an honest person. And until I accepted that, like I was going to be stuck in this. And all of a sudden, I just had this grace, and I grabbed my laptop and I started writing. And a voice said, it's not up for you to understand it. It's up for you to report it. So I wrote my story without judgment. I just wrote my memories, all chronological, all the way through to the end to, the age I was then at 55, I'm 63 now. And I just wrote it. And I started going to groups and speaking about my NDEs. And the first time I did, when I started talking about the pond and hovering, it was like I was hovering. When I told about the ectopic pregnancy, hovering in the white light, I was hovering in the white light again. And people come up to me and wanted to hug me. They wanted to touch the light, they said. And I felt like I was levitating for hours afterwards. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but I feel like I harness the light. Like you get rid of your thinking and your doubts and your fears and what everybody else, what the world's going to say, what the world's going to think about you, and you get into your truth, all of a sudden it's like the light bulb comes on, you see. And so I just started sharing my story, and then I started a podcast. I've had over 400 people come on, share their NDE or their other experiences, spiritual experiences they've had. I started to do some seniors recently. I just want people to not hold it in and hide it like I did, and be ashamed for no reason. Just because people won't believe you is no reason to be ashamed. I want people to be like I am now. Speak your truth, because there's a science here that we need to start learning about, like the true nature of reality. People say that stuff can't be true. You can't be out of your body during NDE. You couldn't have been told this. You couldn't have this or that. Well, there's millions of us. It's happening. And I think there's something we're not tapping into, that if we knew what this was and learned the secrets, I think the world would be a beautiful place. I did not talk about it for a long time, not until I got with my husband. We've been together 27 years now, but it was several years into our marriage that the flashbacks of the spiritual things started coming back, and I slowly started telling him about the drowning and the two pregnancy and these other things. And 30 years after the ectopic pregnancy, because I continued to see the same doctor, I told him after my exam, I took my husband with me, and I said, I've wanted to tell you something for 30 years. He said, well, you better tell me then. And I gave the brief version of the ectopic NDE. And he said, I have come to believe in all my years of experience of exactly what you're saying right there. And the nurse says, oh, he does too. And it felt so good to be able to tell him, because I had wanted to tell him. My NDE with ectopic saved my life. If I hadn't had that NDE, I would have went home when my doctor said I was fine, that it's not ectopic. I would have believed him, because the pain had stopped, the nausea had stopped. Everything was done. I would have went home and my kids would have found me dead the next morning. And so that to me is proof of the near-death experience, because how else would I have known it was ectopic when my doctor assured me it was not? And I knew because I was in heaven accepting it. And I wasn't in the chair long enough to fall asleep and have a dream. Why would I hallucinate? I just got to the hospital. Why would I hallucinate all that? And how could I hallucinate that so accurately? There's a lot I don't understand. Like, how did I see in the future that never happened? I saw what my boys would be like if I didn't return. So I have questions. I don't have a lot of answers. There's just too many things. One day I was out in the backyard and all of a sudden I see something come towards me. And it was like there was two angels there. And they said, "Are you still praying for Jeff's dad?" And I'm like, "No, we're divorced. Like, am I supposed to?" And they were gone. They were like talking amongst themselves, gone. And I'm like, what in the world? Then Jeremy calls me. He says, "Mom, Grandpa had a heart attack and died." And so it was a vision. And I've come to see, like, I look back at all these things and things are shown from the other side in visions, in memories. And it's the same mode of communication. You hear people's NDEs and they have these same features. And this is the way heaven communicates. I think it takes practice, learning when you hear, and it sounds like you're hearing voices. That sounds like something mentally wrong. But if you learn, sometimes it's so subtle. Like, don't go there. Don't trust him. And if you catch yourself saying, "Oh, I'm not going to listen to that." That's, for me personally, that's when it clues me in. Wait a minute. What was just talking to me for me to argue with it? And a few years ago, I was driving to town by myself. It was on noon on a Saturday, beautiful day. And all of a sudden I thought, I think I'm going to be in a car wreck. I'm thinking, that's ridiculous. It's a beautiful day. I'm going right there to town. I almost see town in the distance. It's a 2-lane road, not far from our house. And I thought, wait a minute. I have come to know these feelings mean something. What's it going to hurt to say a prayer right now? So I said a prayer to God. I said, "God, I don't know why I'm so scared right now. Please keep me safe as I drive." And next thing I see is a black SUV coming towards me in the lane. And I'm driving. All of a sudden, it comes in my lane. Like, there's nothing to pass. There's no reason. It's coming straight towards me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be killed right now. Is this person trying to kill me? Like, I don't know who it is. Like, it's coming straight towards me. It didn't swerve like they're on their phone and drifted or went to sleep. It didn't drift. It was coming straight intentionally towards me. And I just thought, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful day. They're going to call my husband at work. They're going to call my sons. They're going to be scraping me off this highway. Like, I'm going to die right now. And I've always told myself, if something's coming at you, don't swerve. Like, you can get in a worse wreck. And I also thought, if I swerve, I think this car is intentionally trying to run me off the road. Like, I'm going to swerve and die, and they're never going to know because somebody ran off the road. I thought, it's going to hit me head on because it's going to get hit too. And then I thought, but I can't turn the wheel. That I could wreck. And something said, well, you could turn a little bit. And I just washed my hand like somebody else took control and turned it to the right. And that car, I don't know how we kept from hitting. It didn't even hit my mirror. And we just went right alongside and looked in the rearview mirror, and there it went on. I had my husband call State Highway Patrol, and I said, because there's somebody, I think they're trying to kill people. And there's been a lot of wrecks on that road. I don't know if somebody's trying to run people off or what's going on. And so, it doesn't hurt to say a prayer. If you're feeling unusually, like I heard that kid crying, what did it hurt to go look? Nobody else cared. What does it hurt? If you're getting these little nudges, if you're getting these voices, what's it hurt to go check? Because I didn't go check with that woman. I talked myself out of it. Well, because everybody said I couldn't go down there. I couldn't talk myself, but I didn't go. And the woman died. And everybody tries to comfort me, say, well, apparently she wanted to go. Apparently it was her time. It's like, I should have went. And so, yes, I pray. And I believe we have to ask for what we want. When I was 17 and on the hill and I was praying and I asked God to help me, He gave me the steps. I believe we all have the power of prayer, and a lot of people won't humble themselves to do it. Yeah, I remember so well being told that I would have the will of a wildflower. So now here I am, 63, this great-grandmother, and I look back at my life. Why was it so hard for me? What is this for? And it seems like that's how we grow compassion. When we have those hard times, if I didn't know what it was like to be an abused kid, I wouldn't understand the foster kids I had and the kids I had as clients, as therapeutic foster care, or the adopted kids. The adopted kids was my biggest lesson because these kids are so broken. I adopted older kids. They remember their biological parents, their grandparents, their cousins, and everybody. And secretly, they long for them. It doesn't matter if you have a nice home and give them nice clothes and nice meals. You're not family. They get to be teenagers and they're angry. They know they have another family. They know they belong somewhere else. Even the ones at birth, they have learned that the babies have such anxiety by taken from their mother at birth that they give them her nightgown, a piece of her clothing, so that they could keep that smell for a while to keep that bond going because it's too hard on them. They come from broken parents. And then you put them in a nice family and they'll pretend everything's hunky-dory, but all that trauma is going to come out. I had trauma clear up until, I started writing my book. I was carrying that trauma right around. Even though I have a wonderful husband, raised my kids, had a nice career, the trauma's still there. But I learned so much about the problems through those adopted kids. They're afraid of love. They're afraid of being hurt. They don't trust love. And I knew what that was like. What I had happen to me made me able to understand why they're acting like this. We got broken kids everywhere. I fostered 60 kids and you adopted 10, including my nephew. And all I can say is the kids now know a difference. We set a good example in our home. They have another side of life that they've seen now other than what they grew up with. And they know, every one of them know, they can call us day or night and we'll be right there. It doesn't matter if they're clear across country, what they need. They know that we would be there. So just try to be kind. That's all we can do. If they're running to kind people all day, you run into somebody that's not kind, it can ruin your day, it can ruin your week, and you don't know that somebody could be suicidal, they could be really fragile, and it could just be the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, if we're given a choice to make somebody's day better or make it worse, why not make it better?